everyone, and welcome back to the F2 show by Inside F2. Not long now until the Formula 2 season in 2025 gets underway, and we're joined by Prema driver for 2025, Sebastián Montoya. Sebastian, great to have you on the podcast. How are you?
No, thank you so much for having me, and I'm doing well. Excited for the first race of the season. We finished the test in a very positive manner, to say the least. From my side, I was quite happy. We had some clear goals that we had to work on from Abu Dhabi in the postseason, and some things that were just, I think, key to work on before the first race. Honestly, quite happy overall.
Love that. We'll get on to testing shortly, but I definitely want to hear about that. First of all, how was your off season? What did you end up doing with your time off in between Formula 3 season and getting back to testing?
I didn't really have an off season.
No?
After Monza, trying to figure out what I was going to do, and then by the time I figured out what I was going to do, my dad did a NASCAR race after Monza, which was really nice. Then I went to Colombia to do a couple work events. And then after that, starting to work out, gym like crazy, and just prepare the season.
Straight back to it. This the busy life of a Formula 2 driver, right?
Yeah, to be honest, I was quite surprised, because I think it's the first year ever where I didn't really have an off season. For New Year's I went 10 days to Dubai, and I was sick those 10 days. So I didn't step into the gym or anything, but I still had fun in Dubai, which was really nice. The weather was a lot warmer than Europe, so that was splendid. Wearing shorts was amazing.
It's so cold in Europe at the moment,
that's basically all I did, in the winter. But I loved it. It was super nice.
Yeah, good. Love that. Listen, we've got loads of questions coming from the fans. I'm going to ask them to you as we go through. I guess the idea of today, we want obviously to the F2 fans to get to know the real Sebastián Montoya, if that's all right. There's some fun questions. I'll tell you what, should we start with a few fun questions? Zoe asks, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I don't like pineapple, and I'm racing for an Italian team, so big no. There's been a conversation, and for example, Prema have some media days that we do to film content and stuff. And I was filming a video with Gabriele, and someone said pineapple on pizza, and the room went silent. It was like, whoa, no one committed murder. We're talking about pizza.
But you got no problem because you don't like pineapple, right?
Exactly. So I stand with the team.
Love that. What's your favourite form of social media? Instagram, Twitter? What's your TikTok?
I would say probably I have 3 different ones. So Instagram is always nice because I feel like it's the most professional one that I can relate to. TikTok, because I can scroll on TikTok for days. My dad loves TikToks, and for example in the testing, at the end of the day, I would get to the hotel room and I wouldn't grab my phone throughout the day, and then I would just look at my phone and it's 63 videos have been sent from my dad. It's whoa, he's had a busy day today.
He's obsessed. Yeah, exactly. I love that. Nice.
The third one would be Snapchat, which I just started using it recently. Okay. And I feel like it's so personal that it takes everything, I don't know how to say, it's just more natural, the content. Yeah. And I've started to use that. But out of all 3, those are the 3 I most use. But then I honestly TikTok every day.
Every day, TikTok. Love that. Nice. Right, enough of the fun stuff. Let's get talking about motorsport. We'll come back to the fun stuff a bit later. Talk to me about, I guess not talk to me, but talk to viewers who don't know Sebastián Montoya. Let's talk about your career so far. What's your earliest memory of motorsport, both watching it for the first time and then driving for the first time?
Yeah, so as many of you might know, my dad was an F1 driver. My dad's probably one of the motorsport legends from today's age, and he bought me a go-kart when I was 3, and I also got a dirt bike when I was young as well. When I was 3 years old, I got a little quad bike, and I preferred the quad bike over the kart because the kart was too slow. The quad was quicker, so I preferred the quad. And then I got a little dirt bike, and then the little dirt bike, I loved it. And then when I was 6, they gave me a bigger go-kart. And then from that moment forward, I stuck with 4 wheels.
Yeah, got it. What was your favourite memory from karting? Is there a moment that stands out when you were karting and you just really fell in love with the sport?
I've always been in love with the sport, but for sure, like one of the better moments I've had was winning Vegas in 2018. That was really nice. Or just the whole year of 2018 was really nice. That I won the national championship in the US, won it in Colombia as well. And then in Europe, I was doing a really good job as well, fighting for European titles and stuff. So that was quite nice. Like that whole year, I would say probably the first race of the season that I won. That I qualified P2, got the lead out of turn 1, and then didn't look back from there.
I love that. You've obviously had a long history of racing with Prema, Italian F4, for example. I think that was your first time with the team, wasn't it? And then most recently in Freca. How excited are you to be returning to the Prema family in Formula 2?
I'm very excited. It's honestly been a very long journey. It's quite cool because both engineers, both Gabriele's and mine, I raced against them. One of them in F4 and then one of them in a regional in the Middle East. And nice. It was honestly really cool. And like at the time, you're in F4 and then you look at them, it's like, oh, they were both F3 engineers. At the time, it's like, wow, they're F3 engineers. Like, this is super cool. Like, they're with F3 drivers and stuff like this. And then now that you're the engineers and like they're your engineers, and it's honestly incredible. It's really cool because they saw me when I was young. They saw me like growing from this young boy that got into F4 racing, and then like that came from karting and all this, and I had to learn the process of, let's say, formula racing. And then leaving the team to do F3, I changed a lot as a person. Those 2 years is quite a lot, especially I think that's because at the age that you're in, from like 17 to 18, 19, you really transform as a person and you learn a lot about life. Not only as a driver, you learn a lot, but also as a person, you become more mature, you become more professional, and all these things. It was a tough journey in F3, and then coming back to the team to be one of the 2 F2 drivers is honestly like a dream come true.
Prema really feels like, more than any other team, I think, it feels like a family. You just look at Robert and Callum in Indy, for example. They've been with Prema through the junior ranks, and then they've gone back. You look at Ollie, for example, all the way with Prema, all the way through. It feels like the team that is the biggest family. Am I right by saying that?
Yeah, like with the other teams, I was always super close. Like Campos, for example, in F3, like because it's a Spanish-speaking team, you just get along really well. Yeah. But there's just something about Prema. Like when I got to the factory for the first time again, and then seeing everyone, it was just kind of like, hey, and like it was really cool as well because a lot of people looked at me and they went, "Damn, you've been getting big." I was like, thank you. I've been in the dream. I've tried my best to look better. Because in F4 I was quite small. I would say one of the smaller guys. And when they saw me, they were like, "Oh wow, Montoya, you've really put on some muscle." And I was like, "Yes, this is good. This is what I want to hear."
That's the biggest compliment they could have given you, right?
Yeah, it was like, I don't know, like no girls made me feel how that comment made me feel. I'll say that. Like that just completely just like, whoa, like you made my day.
Love that. Nice. You mentioned Campos there. You're obviously with Campos for a couple of years in F3. What are the key learnings from your 2 years in Formula 3 that you're going to bring with you to Formula 2 and is going to make you a better driver in Formula 2?
Yeah, I think my F3 journey was quite interesting because I did a one-off race in 22 with Campos, and then when I got signed by the junior team, by the Red Bull junior team, I went to High Tech. And I would say it was a really big culture shock in the way that they approach racing. And then going to Campos, back to Campos for the full season in 24, that was also a big change because the team had evolved a lot. Like when I raced with them in 22, they were starting to change and starting to get like better in a way, like with a more, I would say, professional approach in a way, because the things that they started to do, the development was pretty cool. And going back to the team and see how they were working was honestly a kind of like a big learning, and being able to adapt to that as a driver is quite difficult because the approach of your driving has to be a lot different. The approach that they work is a lot different, and also the mentality that they have is a lot different. So it was a big shock for me going back to Campos, and honestly, like it took a little bit of time to get used to, but once I got used to it, for me, it was awesome. Like it was just every week was just a big smile on my face and enjoying it with the team, especially because they knew how quick I was. They knew my potential, and just being able to unlock that bit by bit by the time we got to the end of the season, it was awesome. We enjoyed it, like especially the last two races. We really enjoyed it.
Yeah, love that. Nice. So you're a Formula 2 driver now. First of all, has that sunk in that you're a Formula 2 driver? Sebastián Montoya, Formula 2 driver. Has that sunk in?
Yeah, like this was actually a conversation I had with my mom when we signed with Prema. Was my first year in Prema, my teammates were Portoledo, Mini, and Beganovic, and we all went to dinner together. And we did this huge dinner from the F2 drivers to the F4 drivers. And I remember we were there, and then the regional drivers came, and then after that, the F3 drivers got there, and we're like, whoa, like, that's really cool. Like they're sorry for the cursing. They're like an F3, like, this is awesome. And then I remember it was the year that Mick was going to win the championship in 2020, and Robert was a rookie and just won F3. Yeah. And when they got to the table, like, I remember me and Dino looking at each other like, whoa.
You're like, buzzing,
yeah. And it was quite funny because that memory came to mind, and I was like, I'm one of them now. And it's quite cool. And like the thing is, like, over time you realize that you also grow into that. Like, obviously, like, when you step into F4, you think F3 and F2 race with F1, oh my god, that's crazy. And then you start to, like, race F3 and F2, and you're like, I forget F1's there. Like, you forget F1's there, you forget. It's just, like, you put it on the TV to watch it, but you don't focus on that. And then you kind of grow into the stage, and at the end of the day, you've worked really hard to get there. You've had to prove that you're quick. You've had to prove that you're a good driver, and you've gotten there. So, from one side, you kind of look at it and go, I got here, so
yeah,
it fits.
I get that. Do you, bearing in mind how you felt as an F4 driver, looking at these F2 drivers like Mick, for example, do you now feel that responsibility when you go to Prema, for example, and you're doing some, I don't know, some media stuff with the F4 kids, for example? Do you feel like you kind of owe it to them to give them a lot of time and give that back because of how excited you were as an F4 driver?
Yeah, the cool thing is that this year in Prema in F4, there's a Colombian driver as well called Salim Hanna. Yeah. And when he started racing in the US, he raced with my dad's go-karting team. And I've known him ever since he was like 6 or 7 years old. And he's like my little brother. It was really funny because before Barcelona test, I was doing sim and he was at the sim as well. And I was looking at the sim and I was like, man, I can help you. Like, if you need advice, like, I can help you. And he's like, please.
Yeah. My baby's buzzing.
And he's like, yeah, like, I don't really know what to do. And I'm like, here, just do this. And it's really cool because at the same time, like, you want to help him as well. Like, you don't want, like, if it's me or him, I want to win. But he's still growing. He still has his career to go. And, yeah, it's just really cool. And it's really fun because at the end of the day, like, most of the guys, like Noel Leon, for example, in F3, like, I raced with him for the first time in 2013. Like, I've known him for a while. And, like, we were friends back then and we're still friends. So it's cool. Quite cool to, like, do, for example, like, the challenges together. Mini, that I raced with Mini for the first time in 2018. And we've been teammates. This is going to be our third year being teammates. So you kind of get along with one another and it's quite fun.
I love that. What are you most looking forward to about being a Formula 2 driver?
The racing. Everything about F2 is just, for me, it's awesome. Like, the car, it's big, it's heavy, it's hard to drive, it's physical. Like the F3, for example, in qualifying, like, you can throw it around, like, and just smash the throttle, smash the brake, like, just push to the absolute limit. F2 is super technical. It's like, the first time I went on throttle on the outlap, you kind of, like, go on it, and it's like, whoa, like, you almost spin, and you're like, yeah, this isn't a switch anymore. Like, I actually have to modulate the throttle. And that's awesome.
Powerful, yeah?
It's super powerful. And, like, for example, I have a clip in my head when Piastri won the championship back in 2021 that he exited the last corner in Abu Dhabi and he was drifting it, like, power drifting. Yeah. And then, like, for example, like, in the test, like, at the end of a push lap or something like this, like, when the tires are overheated, you, like, slide into the corner, you're fighting with the rear, you go on power, and then you're getting the slide, and you're like, damn, like, I'm doing that now. So, no, it's really cool. Like, everything about it's super cool. The level's super high. And I have to say, the racing is just, everything about it is just so top level that you really have to push yourself. And this year, I have a physio, which I've never had before. I have a nutritionist, which I've never had before. And I've been working with my psychologist for my second year now. And there's a lot of fundamentals that I didn't really have before, which I have now. And just the ability to work with the team as we are now is, I would say, quite high. Like the level is quite high. And just, I'm super excited about that. Like I love working for what I love, and it's just been awesome.
It's just another level F2, right? It's like everything is a step up.
Yeah, and it's super close. Like it's super, I would say, underrated in a way, because you're on the limit. Like when I tell you you're on the limit, you're 10 out of 10 every time you're in the car. And this is something that I learned in the test, that, as my engineer said, you're in a pool with sharks. And if you give them something, they'll take everything. And you always have to be there, which is awesome. I love it. I get super excited even talking about it.
I can tell. I bet you're buzzing for Australia. What were your learnings from testing then? What was obviously the fact that when you put the throttle down, it's crazy powerful. But what else did you learn from testing?
Yeah, so we had the test in Abu Dhabi last year at the end of the season, and that was mainly just getting used to the car, getting some of the basics down, and also applying what you know. So then, because at the end of the day, when you're driving, because it's a one-lap qualifying at the end, you have to be able to do it automatically. So one thing that we were working on is kind of day one, do what you know. Day two, kind of adjust that. And day three, adjust that, but for race runs mainly. And when you're trying to apply that, like you try to make small differences, but at the end of the day, you drive off instinct, because that's what makes you go quicker. And the work during the off season was changing the fundamentals, changing the instinct to what you need to be able to adapt to the F2 car of like, okay, this I didn't have to do and it doesn't work. I have to do it this way, and this will lead to this and this and this. In Barcelona, the test was basically that. It's apply what I've learned in the off season, which was quite well. But then at the end, there's still some fine tuning you need to do. And then try to understand the car as well. Like what happens if you have oversteer on the entry? What happens if you have understeer on the entry? Like how does the balance change throughout the lap? A big thing that I don't really see people talking about is the carbon brakes, for example. That it's the same brakes that they use in F1. That it's really difficult to warm them up, and then it's really easy to mess them up in a way, like glaze them or like let them cool down too much. Where in F3, you don't have that issue. In F3, you just smash the brake as many times as you want. It's fine. In F2, you can overheat the brakes. And if you overheat the brakes, you cook the tires before you even start pushing.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say, like tyre wear. Like I think of Bahrain, second round of the season, and you're going to have to manage the tyres like crazy, right? It's all those little things that you have to think about that you haven't thought about in your career so far. Pit stops as well. Pit stops.
Luckily, I did endurance racing for 2 years. So I got the gist of it quite quickly, and it's really fun. But it's obviously something different. Like it's one thing's doing it in a prototype, one thing's doing it in an actual F2 car. And the thing is, like as you said, the degradation is so high that's one thing I also learned in Barcelona, that you can take care of the tires as much as you want, but it's still going. Like from one lap to another, you're like, okay, like this feels good, this feels good, this feels good, and the next thing you know, you're like, I have no grip. It's fun. And like you get on the radio and you're with your engineer, and like it's always when the engineer talks, but it's like, okay, the pace is super good, and then he's like, keep it up. Okay, let's try to do one more lap like this, and then that when he says that, it's just plummets straight down, and you're like, nope, sorry. But that's like just everything, just the fine tuning in the driving for the 1 lap pace, the race, just trying to manage that, the brakes, because the difficult thing with the brakes is as the tires wear out, you can't hit the brake as aggressively. You can't do all these things. So it's really easy for the brakes to go and like switch off. And then as soon as you lose a brake, it's super difficult to get it back. And it's this whole process. So that's very technical, but like all these things like you have to worry about when you're driving. And that's like something that I'd never have to think, like I'd never had to do that before. So it's a new challenge, but getting used to that is really nice. And then the pit stop, when you're coming with tires that have no grip, it's sketchy.
You don't want to bin it in the pit lane, definitely not. We've seen some drivers like Kush, for example, Kush Maney, Josh Dirksen, who have just adapted to F2 really, really quickly. I guess that's the aim for you, right? Is that because the car suits them more? And do you think the F2 car could suit your driving style as well?
Oh, I would love to sit here and tell you that the F2 car is going to fit my driving style, but I don't know. I haven't started the season, so I don't know. But at the end of the day, it has to. I have to change my driving style then, because at the end of the day, what I want to do is win. And I want to be the quickest person I can be, and I know that when I'm at my top level, I'm at the front. So I just have to make sure I do my bit, and then I know the team will do the best to do their bit, and if we put everything together, we'll be there in the fight.
Yeah, no, for sure. You shared a reel on social media a little while ago about it was your training essentially. What's your pre-season training looked like, and what are the main focuses physically? What have they been in the off season?
Muscle. And a lot of like the neck a bit, but the neck I've been working on since last year, so it hasn't been too bad.
Okay.
But everything about it, like the neck training is awful. Like a lot of people wrote me and they were like, that neck bridge that you're doing in the video, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I'm like, trust me, at the beginning, I couldn't either.
Yeah.
And like even everything about it, just the arms, like if you see me, like I'm a bit bigger now, but like before I was quite a skinny guy, and being able to put the weight on is difficult, and you have to eat a lot. Like for me, it's really easy to lose weight. And like when I say lose weight, it's like I can weigh, like for example, at the beginning of last year, because I got really sick before preseason testing in F3 last year, I weighed 60 kg.
Yeah.
And at the end of the season, now I'm weighing almost 70. Like I put 10 kg on, and it's like, it's quite a bit. Like, and you have to be eating like an animal. You have to make sure you're eating the right things. You have to make sure that you're working out like an animal, because as soon as you stop working out, like it's easy to lose the weight. And yeah, just everything about it's been really difficult. But at the end of the day, it's beneficiary for you. Like it's a benefit for you, because if you're in the car, for example, and this happened to me in Barcelona, that you turn into the last corner on the option tire, which is the qualifying tire. And when you turn in, the steering wheel gets so heavy, you're like, oh. And if you think about that when you're driving, like lucky for me, I was able to turn the wheel, so I was happy with that. I thought about it, but it was heavy because it was heavier than usual. I turned in and I'm like, damn, this is a bit challenging. But if that limits you, like it would be devastating. Like imagine if you're on for pole and then you get a snap in the last corner and you can't turn. You would want to, it would not be nice. So obviously as a driver, you have to train yourself to be as fit as you can, so when you get into the car, it's not physical. And you'd rather overdo it than underdo it. And there's some tracks, like for example, like Melbourne, I don't expect it to be very physical. But for example, Jeddah, Bahrain, Barcelona, Qatar, like...
Yeah. They're going to be physical tracks, mate. Yeah.
I was at Qatar last year with Ollie and Kimi, just seeing how the team worked and stuff. And I remember they finished the sprint race, and like Ollie was saying the debrief, like, it was heavy. Like, if it was a little heavier, like, if I got one more snap, I would not be able to save the car. And I'm like... Yeah. Okay.
Is that the one race that you're, like, training for all year? Will Qatar be that race?
I don't want to say I have to train for that race, because I want to be physically prepared before that. But for sure, like I would say the biggest one right now in the upcoming months would be Jeddah. Jeddah is super high grip. It's super fast. And the thing is the straights aren't really straight. The straights are corners, and in the corners you're going fast, and you have to put some steering into it. So it's like, even when you're resting, you're not resting. So I would say Jeddah is the one that I'm most focused on.
Yeah, no, definitely. Is there a race that you're looking, just from a pure enjoyment perspective, is there a race? Australia, yeah?
First race of the season. And for example, like my physio has never worked in F2 or F3 before, and he worked in MotoGP before, so he's never lived the Melbourne experience. And I told him it's completely, like, that's the one race where it's completely different. Just the environment is different, it feels different, everything's awesome, everyone's happy. And being the first race of the season, it just makes it so much more exciting. And it's what I've been talking about since last year, November, when I signed with the team. It was when I get to Australia, like my goal is the moment I get to Australia, that last, like the lap in quali, I want to be ready. Like I don't want to be a rookie. Like I don't want to have excuses. I want to prepare myself the best I can for that lap. Yeah. And that's what I've been doing.
Not long to go now, mate. Not long to go now. All right, we're going to go back to the fan questions. Aaron asked, which F1 driver, past or present, inspires you the most?
My dad. I have to
Thought that
go.
might be the answer.
Yeah, I have to go my dad, and if it isn't my dad, it's on Senna. But
Okay.
my dad, just because he's taught me pretty much everything I know, and I don't think I would be in motorsports if it weren't for him.
I love that. That's a nice answer. Matt asked, who's the quickest teammate you've ever raced against?
I've been fortunate to have good teammates. I'd say the one time that I actually went, I'm in trouble, was against my dad in endurance racing.
Okay.
Oh my days. Because as the race is going on, you have the time you have the delta against the quickest time.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time it happened to me was Watkins Glen, which is an American track. Super high speed, super grippy. And you're pulling you can pull 4.5 Gs for 4 or 5 seconds. And when you're a regional driver and you're experiencing this for the first time in the race, I remember the first time I went through that and I'm like, oh yeah, look, I'm moving my head, I'm fine. I physically was doing reps inside the car like this and I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy. An hour and 20 minutes later, I would turn in and this would just be my head just flopping over. just completely gone. And I remember that when I got into the car for the first time, for the first stint, his delta was there and I'm like, this guy's quick.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
He can, old man can move it.
Who would, forget the weight thing, if you're both in an F2 car, do you back yourself to beat him?
Yeah. As competitive I am, there's no chance I'm letting my dad beat me in any car. In any car.
Love that. That's good attitude. Nessie asked, do you have a motivational quote that spurs you on when you need motivation?
To be honest, one thing for me is I've always wanted to be an F1 driver. I've always wanted to be, I believe in myself that I can be one of the best in the world. So what I think is, what would 5-6-year-old me that got into karting right away say if you saw me now?
Love that. Nice. And that's still the goal, to be an F1 driver, yeah? That's still what you say?
F1 world champion.
F1 world champion.
Not F1 driver, F1 world champion.
And then you can say you got one up on your dad then, yeah?
Exactly.
Love that. All right. And I guess final question from me is, what does a successful Formula 2 look like in 2025? If we're chatting this time at the end of the season, what would you want to say to me as what's been your success this year?
Win races, win the championship, get pole positions, and just a cherry on top would be Monaco.
Monaco, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Your teammate is very good around Monaco, actually, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, we were teammates the first year, and it's I remember in the wet we were quicker than him, and then because we were in the first group, the track was a bit slower, and then he was slower than us till that last lap. And the last lap, I remember the engineer said to him, he's like, mate, go for it or put it in the wall. And he stuck the lap. And then last year was, I would say that qualifying was a bit messy in general. But yeah, he got it, and 2 for 2. Hopefully this year it goes to the other driver.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, if I'm watching Monaco qualifying in a few months' time and you're beating Gabrielli, then I know you'll be buzzing with that. So. Definitely. Listen, best of luck for the season, Sebastian. Do you have a message for your fans ahead of the 2025 season?
Yeah, I want to say thank you guys for just supporting me constantly. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's been a difficult year for me. From last year to now, I've learned a lot, but I've also succeeded in a lot of things. I've learned a lot as a person. I've grown a lot as a person. And honestly, it's really nice to see the messages of people that supported me through the hard times and through the good times. And the people that are so motivated as much as I am for this year. I'm buzzing. And thank you to you for having me and being able to chat. Hopefully you guys see a little bit more of me. And yeah, thank you guys.
Listen, from all of us at Inside F2, wishing you all the best of luck for 2025. And there's lots more to come before the season starts from us on Inside F2 as well, including our pre-season podcast with Chris McCarthy, the new Formula 2 commentator. That's coming out very soon. We've got our pre-season predictions video as well, which I know you guys love. And we've also got an interview with Jack Crawford coming out very soon as well. So keep your eyes peeled for that. You know what to do. Make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss any of the content that's coming out. But from me, Fraser Ford, and all of us here at Inside F2, we'll see you next time.